Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Michigan continues the heater they're on in the 2024 recruiting class, landing legacy offensive tackle Blake Frazier from the state of Texas. Really big fan of Blake Frazier, and you take a look at the offers he had at Clemson, LSU, Florida, Texas. If you want to be the best offensive lineman, you go to Michigan. Michigan quickly is becoming just a destination spot for the top offensive lineman in the country. Sharon Moore continuing to do a phenomenal job recruiting. Now, before we get into Blake Frazier, taking a look at how this 2024 class stands and some potential prospects to keep an eye on in the month of April and May. Again, I just want to say thank you to you guys, especially the Michigan fans. We've been talking a lot of Michigan football. You know we rock with Michigan football. You guys have been absolutely awesome. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Stay locked in. We got a lot more Michigan content coming your way on the recruiting trail, previewing the 2023 season. Dale, I'm going to kick this one off to you. How are we feeling about Blake Frazier, the legacy, taking his talents down?
We said it last time with Andrew Sprague. These are the battles you got to win. When you see the offer list, and it's Clemson, it's LSU, it's Texas, it's Florida. Those teams that, again, like when you lock horns with them, they're tough to beat, and they're getting their share of guys too. But big battle. And I feel like for the last couple of years, maybe Michigan was always in these top 10s, top 5s, and so forth. And when it would come down to it, they'd lose them. A Javion Toviano is like stands out to me. Lose them to LSU. And again, if they can start stringing together these type of recruiting wins along with what they're clearly doing in terms of developing, which they're doing as good as anyone in the country, I would say. Again, this is how we get that 3 and 5. Those national titles and string them together, hopefully.
I think one of the biggest things is y'all, all those other programs, team down south, y'all can have fun with your 5-star wide receivers. We're running the ball right down your throats like we did the last couple of years. That's like the blueprint for Michigan football. Like we are recruiting phenomenally on the offensive line. I think another storyline for this is Ben Herbert. And you read kind of the recruiting notes. A lot of families, especially on the offensive line, and these recruits are extremely impressed with what Ben Herbert has done. You see the guys testing at the combine. You see how strong and how developed these guys get in the weight room. I think Ben Herbert is playing as impactful as a role as possible as a strength coach and kind of selling on, you want to come to Michigan as an offensive lineman. You were getting big, you were getting strong, and you were getting explosive. And that's something that's clearly resonating with some of these guys in the 2024 class.
Yeah, and now you're starting to see it. I mean, a lot of guys who a couple of years ago, you'd come in like guys like Andrew Vistardis, Ryan Hayes, who'd come in as Vistardis, I think, was a walk-on. Hayes, 3 or 4-star recruiter, maybe a low 4, but developing into legitimate NFL pros. And Andrew Stuber, same thing, comes in as a 3-star. They develop him, and that's like what you're seeing. And now the caliber of player who's coming in is possibly a little higher. And again, if they can just keep going on the track with what they're doing in terms of making guys pro ready and crank up the recruiting, man. I'm just like so excited about Michigan.
The blueprint that Ohio State's using for like these wide receivers and quarterbacks, like, hey, you come to Ohio State and you're going to the NFL. Like that's kind of what's happening on the offensive line for Michigan. Like you take a look at the 5 guys we're going to be trotting out there in 2023. All 5 of them probably going to be draft picks in that 2024 NFL draft. And guys like Trevor Keegan, Zach Zinner, they would have certainly been draft picks in 2023 had they declared. Like this is becoming back-to-back Joe Moore Award winners. Like this is the destination for offensive linemen. I think especially like it gets hard to sell some of the wide receivers when in such a run-heavy offense. No, it's not hard to sell these big, ugly offensive linemen who want to run the football. They want to be physical in the trenches. I think that's why you're seeing so many guys gravitate to Ann Arbor on the offensive line.
Yeah, and 100%. And again, I think with what Michigan's got now at quarterback with Jaden Davis and what I hope to see from J.J. McCarthy now, I think, again, you don't want to only say like, well, we're not going to recruit these wideouts at the high level. Like, I hope that kind of comes along now too with being able to, again, I hope JJ puts up a year that forces him to go pro. Like I want him to play that well. And then Jaden Davis kind of come along behind him and start stringing together some really big-time quarterbacks, because you look at under Harbaugh's era, there has not really been anyone who stands out like, man, that guy was the man at Michigan. Some decent quarterbacks. Spade played okay at times. Shea Patterson played okay at times. But you never had that, like, Yeah, that Justin Fields, that
We
Dwayne
never had the Heisman Trophy
Haskins.
candidate, the All-American, and that's what the wide receivers gravitate to. Like if you're a wide receiver and having offers from everywhere, you want to go where the quarterback play and the offense is going to be explosive and where you can put up numbers. Having J.J. McCarthy being one of the best quarterbacks in the country and now Jaden Davis following suit, I really do feel confident that you're going to get some of these wide receivers on campus as well. Now, taking a look at how this 2024 class is coming together, like 12th commit. It's a top 3 class in the country according to 24/7 Sports, and you are kind of spaced out. I mean, it's been offensive line heavy, but that's how Michigan makes their money. I mean, you even look at the team heading into 2023. There's like 12 guys that would be starters at most Power 5 teams, all on Michigan. So this is an offensive line centered team. Maybe not the sexiest, but as we've seen the last 2 years, like it's clearly working.
And now, I mean, in fairness, they hadn't had their quarterback until really April.
Yeah.
So now it's time to fill in the rest of this position group and get your tight ends, get your wideouts, and get you guys who are going to kind of light it up in the air.
And one other thing I'd want to note is like you look at the team that's been dominating, the Georgia Bulldogs, kind of a similar blueprint. I mean, I think Michigan and Georgia kind of like they share a similar offensive philosophy in terms of running the football first and then work and play action. Georgia hasn't, I mean, George Pickens, sure, but like they haven't been All-American wide receivers. They recruited the position decent, but they don't rely on their wide receiver play like teams like Alabama and Ohio State. And it's clearly been working because they're animals up front. They can run the football. And then who are their pass catchers? It's their tight ends. And you're starting to see Michigan kind of rely on a lot of tight ends. Like Colson Loveland probably going to have a massive year. AJ Barner coming in. Like that's kind of the blueprint, and it's hard to say that's not going to work because it's working for Georgia and it's certainly been working for Michigan.
Teams just don't know how to play that style anymore. Everyone's kind of
want to space it out.
Teams like that put the ball in the air. So it's like, yeah, that is kind of interesting to see that Georgia, Michigan, some of the other teams. That
I wonder if you see it revert back, like at some point where it's like, okay, the space teams like Alabama and Ohio State, they had their burn, they had like some success. But now, like, you're starting to see maybe the pendulum swing back to, like, being physical on the trenches, running the football. Because what's the best thing? How can you best stop an explosive offense like Ohio State? Keep them off the field, like Michigan did the last 2 years. You run the football consistently. C.J. Stroud or whoever's playing quarterback this year for them doesn't get to touch the ball as much. That's the best way you can stop an offense like that. It's hard to stop C.J. Stroud, but if you don't give him the football, that's how you stop him the best.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like, I think people think it's going to go back to like the 3 yards cloud of dust.
No.
And see that, but I do think you're right. It's like even like Ohio State's obviously trying to commit more to playing a bit of a heavier style and being a little more balanced. Like, yes, they want to throw the ball and they'll always do it, and their offense is always going to be really good. But I think the way of being so one dimensional that some teams have been, I think you're right. You're just not seeing that a whole lot. Like, teams are trying to get better running the football and playing a style that does maybe slow it down a little bit, protect your defense. And
it's another interesting thing to note that like the speed has been such a commodity. Like you see how much 24/7 and other recruiting services value the recruits that have verified track times. If you have a verified 100-meter time that's fast, like you're shooting up the board, rather if you're a good football player or not. If you have a good 100-meter track time, you're going to be a top 100 guy according to 24/7. You're starting to see like Michigan kind of buck that trend a little bit. We're going to go after the guys who are physical. And I think so many teams have prioritized getting all that speed that like when a Michigan or a Georgia comes along, that we're going to play physical for you. And you're not really seeing that much. I think that's why you're seeing teams like that have so much success. Now, I want to steer us to the crystal balls because, yes, Michigan has been on fire, if you will, with the commitments, landing our 12th commitment of the 2024 class. You're still feeling really good about what's to come for Michigan here.
Yeah, and again, my big thing now, what I want to see for the rest of it is, can you get a little more offensive skill? Because that's a position they really didn't recruit a ton of in 2023. And can you start filling the defense? Because right now it's fairly offensive heavy, and I don't worry about it too much because it is been a deep unit, and you figure maybe like the defensive recruiting class might you just can't take as many guys because there's not that much to play, and it's still fairly young. So I do want to see, but probably the biggest thing is just see a little bit of wide out kind of talent come along.
Yeah, the next guy I have my eye on is Channing Goodwin, and you feel pretty good. I mean, he's wide receiver 1 for Jaden Davis at Providence Day. keeping your eye on him, but I feel good about the wide receivers coming, because like you have that premier guy in Jaden Davis who's going out to all the 7-on-7s and the All-Star games, throwing to these wide receivers who are top 100 dudes nationally. Like, hey, coming to Michigan, we're cooking. I'm going to have good protection. We're obviously trending in the right direction with how explosive this offense can be. I think this year for J.J. McCarthy means a lot in terms of recruiting the wide receiver position. If J.J. McCarthy can be a 3,500-yard passer and show some explosiveness through the air, I think wide receivers who are on campus seeing, hey, Michigan can throw the ball now. Like that's how you kind of attract those guys, because why are they going to Ohio State and Bama? Because those are the teams that are benefiting the wide receivers the most in terms of production and on the field play.
Yeah, and I agree. That's essentially kind of what I hope is next, because they haven't really been able to recruit that quarterback position the past couple of years, and I do think that has hampered a little the wideout class. And the wideout class in 21 was pretty solid, but again,
I think the biggest thing that's hampered Michigan's wide receiver recruiting is just the style that Michigan's played. Like, it's just not like you're going to do a lot of blocking. And so Michigan kind of values the guys who are going to do that nitty gritty type stuff. Like a guy like Mikey Sandstrel or Ronnie Bell did that stuff at Michigan. And obviously Mikey's playing the defensive side of the ball now, but he was a phenomenal blocker when he was playing wide receiver. Michigan may be valuing more of those kind of guys. But I do think, like, if J.J. McCarthy and this offense pick up from where they left off with that Purdue Big Ten championship game and what you saw against TCU in the semifinals, wide receivers are going to start saying, hey, I can put up some numbers in Ann Arbor. It's one of the premier programs in the country. I think that's when you start getting some more offensive skills. So this 2023 season, I think, means a lot for how you're going to recruit the wide receiver position to close out the 2024 class and then going into the 2025 class. But again, Michigan landing another massive one on the offensive line. And the legacy, Blake Frazier, obviously father played for Michigan on the offensive line too. So appreciate you guys checking us out. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More to come for the Michigan recruiting 2024 class soon. Talk to y'all later. Peace.